Though we are not together in body, we are still joined in spirit. Please check out our website, nashvilleuu.org, for updated information as the days pass. Reach out to each other via all the ways we have until we are able to be together in body again. Now let us worship together. We're going to be singing Now Let Us Sing. There will be music playing so that you're able to sing along and clap at home. Let the sound of our singing bowl call us together. If you have a candle at home that you'd like to light, Zoe will now read to us our chalice lighting.
Unitarianism has only been around for a few hundred years. It is only since World War II that the chalice has been used as our symbol. The Unitarian Service Committee stamped the image of a flaming chalice on documents to make them look more official. These documents were needed to help Jewish refugees, including many children, escape from Nazi persecution. Let us remember their courage as we light our chalice today.
And now our covenant that we share with each other across the distance between us. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. And now the hymn for the beauty of the earth.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I hope you're comfortable and that you have everything you need. And this is for all sages or all ages. I'm going to talk a little bit about dreams. So one kind of dream that a lot of people have is a nightmare. How many of you have ever had a nightmare? Can you just shout out some of the things that you see in these nightmares? What are some of the
Monsters.
monsters?
Fire.
Fire? Tornadoes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darkness.
Darkness.
Babies.
Babies.
Babies are nightmares. They can be day nightmares too. And my son, who's grown up now, he saw wolves, and he used to come and tell me, "Mommy, there was wolfies." And so where do you think these nightmares come from? If they're not real, think about it. How about good dreams? What are some of the things that you see in good dreams? You know, Alice in Wonderland, that was really a dream that she had. Some of it was scary, and some of it was good and beautiful. The Wizard of Oz was a dream. We think that this meant that Dorothy fell asleep. She knocked her head, she fell asleep, because when she comes to the end of Wizard of Oz, she wakes up and everyone's gathered around her. That was a dream. Where do you think good dreams or nightmares come from? Any ideas?
Deep in your brain.
Yeah, somewhere deep inside who we are. Does anybody think they come from somewhere else?
Experiences?
Yeah, things you see, things you hear, things you watch on television. I mean, I almost never have nightmares, very rarely. And my recipe for never having nightmares is never watch scary movies, don't read any Stephen King books, and don't watch zombie shows. I think that's why I don't have nightmares. I don't have, like, the material for them isn't coming at me in my everyday life. It's very rare that I have one. So that's a suggestion. Well, be thinking about your dreams and be thinking about that your dreams come to tell you something. And that's what I'm going to be talking to the adults about. You're welcome to stay. Our Share the Plate is designated for the Mental Health America of the South this month. Half of our contributions in the plate will go to the Mental Health America. And I'll tell you at the end that we're also collecting money to help with the tornado. Now, you're not here, and we don't have an actual plate to hand you, but we ask you to look on our website, and you will see that you can contribute to these things, because the needs stay, and even though the church doors will be closed for a little while, we still have to keep the electricity going and keep the building going. So please consider making your usual contribution or your pledge. This is a poem written by a Unitarian Universalist minister. Her name is Lynn Unger. She wrote this in the last few days, just 3 days ago. And it's called Pandemic. And as you listen to this poem, be thinking a little bit about what good could come of what's happening right now, the coronavirus and the sickness. Is there anything good about it? And then we'll have some quiet time to consider that. Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of time? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling, give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray. Touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You can hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we shall live. Here's another poem. It's called The Embrace, and it's about someone who, it's written by a man named Mark Doty, a poet, and it's about his husband who died from AIDS. You weren't well or really ill yet either, just a little tired. Your handsomeness tinged by grief or anticipation, which brought to your face a thoughtful, deepening grace. I didn't for a moment doubt you were dead. I knew that to be true still, even in the dream. You'd been out at work maybe, having a good day, almost energetic. You seemed to be moving from some old house where we'd lived, boxes everywhere, things in disarray. That was the story of my dream. But even asleep, I was shocked out of the narrative by your face, the physical fact of your face, inches from mine. Smooth-shaven, loving, alert. Why so difficult, remembering the actual look of you, without a photograph, without strain? So when I saw your unguarded, reliable face, your unmistakable gaze opening, all the warmth and clarity of you, warm brown tea, we held each other for the time the dream allowed. Bless you. You came back so I could see you once more, plainly, so I could rest against you, without thinking this happiness lessened anything, without thinking you were alive again. I think many of us have had the experience of having someone that we knew who has died appear in our dreams. And just like we said in the Time for All Sages, we don't really know where that comes from. I mean, some people think that person is somewhere and has actually come to them to visit them. And even if it comes from our memories, our nostalgia, our deepest interior feelings and thoughts, is coming to us is beautiful. We might wake up and feel very sad, like really feel the grief that that person isn't there. But my experience, and it's usually my father, he's been dead for 25 years, my experience is that when he comes, I feel so joyful. He's there and I can touch him and I can look at him and I can hear him. That's a really magical thing about dreams. If you're interested in dreams or in analyzing your dreams, I recommend the books of Jeremy Taylor. Jeremy Taylor was a Unitarian Universalist minister, and he was really one of the leading experts on dreams and dream interpretation. There's so many books out there that are just vapid. They have this symbol. This means this. If you see, a butter churn, it means that your thoughts are churned. It's not that way when we interpret dreams. Our dreams do have messages, they do have meanings, but it's much more complex and layered. And Jeremy Taylor is coming from the Jungian tradition, and his teachings, the book that I like the best is called, perhaps my assistant will bring it to me, it's over there, it's called Where People Fly. Thank you. And water runs uphill. Jeremy Taylor died about 2 years ago, and it was a great sadness. He wasn't really, really old. He was young old, and he led dream groups. He didn't have a church as a UU minister. His ministry was teaching all over the world and writing these books, which have been translated into many languages. So I want to tell you something that he wrote, and that'll be kind of my text for what I'll be sharing with you today. He wrote there is an unbroken continuity of experience, stretching from the limited awareness of me all the way to a transcendent awareness of completeness and oneness and identification with the all, A-L-L. I think in the crisis that we're in, with this pandemic, we can sort of see that kind of continuity. Some people are completely focused on themselves, what's going to happen to them. They want to get as many things as they can. They're hoarding, they're bringing stuff home. And other people are really deepening their consideration of others and spreading their thoughts and their feelings to others in ways like this that they hadn't done before. Someone shared a letter with me that came from one of their groups, and the letter said that it was telling people information, as many of us have gotten many of these, including from the congregation, from the church. New solutions often surface during unexpected times, and we believe this is one of those times. So perhaps you thought in this vein during the meditation, but we can look at this as an inconvenience, we can look at it as a problem, we can look at it as a nightmare, but we can also think about what can we learn, how can we grow, how can we become more than we were before it started. On one of the ministers' group lists that I sometimes check in on, there's a lot of information about how different congregations are handling the pandemic. And someone said, for some reason, people were telling me that it reminded them of September 11th. And this younger minister said, I was just a young child during September 11th, so I don't remember. And what I said was, I think it reminds people of September 11th because at that time, it felt surreal. It felt like something that we had never experienced, and we were going into this realm of life that we had never been in before. And furthermore, it also was a wake-up call, and what I mean by that is, it was a wake-up call in that if we had doubted that we were connected all throughout the world, not just in our local community or not just in the United States, I think that was shattered in a tragic way by September 11th. Chernobyl, the disaster of Chernobyl was another time. I was telling someone that was when I had a huge realization. I know it was 35 years ago because I was pregnant with my son, Colin. And it occurred to me that there's no separation. We don't live in silos, like Americans are here, and French people are there, and Ecuadorian people are there. We are connected. This radiation came all the way across the United States. And although it didn't affect us as seriously, it was still something we couldn't stop, we couldn't control, we couldn't do anything about. Some of our older folks remember World War II, or the time right after that, and they also knew that they were connected throughout the world. But the difference, even since September 11th, the difference now is that we know that this connection exists, and this is the same connection that Jung and Jeremy Taylor talk about with dreams. They call it the collective unconscious, or the archetypal unconscious. And 9/11 triggered these archetypal images of fire, destruction, explosion, death, people falling to their death, and it went into people's unconscious in ways that were just new. So when we think about how we respond to this crisis, it's good to keep those doors open, to keep those wonderings open, and not just focus down on the small things that we have to take care of. The difference is that when 9/11 happened, from till today, it's almost 20 years, we didn't have the interconnected actual web, as the internet web, of existence. We knew there was an interconnected web of existence. I was a Unitarian Universalist then, it was one of our principles, but we really didn't have ways to find out. Yes, the internet existed, but we were not all carrying our phones around then and checking every few seconds to see what was going to happen next. This is different. We are actually connected virtually, but we can see and feel the connection. Jeremy Taylor wrote, "In my experience, all dreams are ultimately aimed at this conscious, creative participation in the collective. Archetypal divine energies given shape in the cosmic dance." What he's saying there is that dreams, Jeremy Taylor says, dreams never come without a reason, and they always come to tell us something that we don't already know. So he believes, and he's taught, and he's led dream groups, that dreams are messages to ourselves. Jung called them unopened letters from the soul or from the inner self. He said, Jeremy Taylor said, at the very least, this is a way of conceptualizing the transcendent health and wholeness toward which our dreams are always striving. So maybe we can look at this situation of the pandemic as we might look at a dream. We can learn, we can grow, we can become more resilient, we become more, not less. We can increase in compassion. If nothing else, our dreams tell us that we are creative. Every once in a while I've thought about, as a writer, look, everyone could be a writer. Look at what ourselves, our minds, our intuition is creating and lays out for us like a wonderful story, a novel, a film, every night. It's incredible. And even though there are scientific explanations for why we dream, we really don't know exactly what dreaming is and how it comes. So maybe we're more creative than we actually know. Throughout history, people have both turned to dreams and also poo-pooed the idea of dreams meaning anything. There are dreams in the Bible, and God spoke in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Scriptures, as well as in the Christian Scriptures, through dreams. Today, God sometimes speaks from billboards. And those very, very conservative churches might not give any credence to studying your dreams. Things have changed. But Albert Einstein said that his theory of relativity came from a dream that he had as a young man. He dreamed he was sledding down a hill, and with some friends, he kept coming back up, sledding down again, coming back up, sledding down again. And then, like the last time that he went down the hill, his speed increased, and he could see that he was approaching the speed of light. Now, this was after he had been puzzling on and working on this idea for a long time, but he woke up, and that's when he came up with his theory of relativity. Elias Howe invented the sewing machine, and he also had a dream that helped him make that invention. The sewing machine hadn't been invented, but the power loom had been invented, and the weaving had been invented. So the fabric was being made, but we didn't have a sewing machine to put it together. So fabric was piling up, and he wanted to invent something. He worked and worked and worked, couldn't come up with it. And one night he had what we would probably call a nightmare. He was being chased by savages, I'll just say. And these people captured him, and they put him into a big pot. Now, these are images that come from his time, but they put him into a big boiling pot of liquid to kill him. And they had like spears that they kept shoving him back down into the pot with these spears. And when he woke up, he was like, oh, thank goodness. He would try to climb out, and they would push him back down. He would, oh, thank goodness that wasn't real. That was a nightmare. But then he thought, I wonder why those spears all had holes in their points. And he just went, that's it. That's the answer. For a sewing machine to work, the hole has to be in the point of the needle, not in the dull end of the needle. And he invented the sewing machine based on that dream. Einstein said that all his work and all his inventions came from this initial dream that he had. I had a dream the other night, and I was on a boat. It was last night. I was on a boat, and it was kind of a yacht, and there were some people who came onto the boat. I knew some of them, and I didn't know most of them, and I think they were mostly women, but they had like sort of 50s or 60s style hairdos. They had their hair done, and I remember wondering, like, how could they all get their hair done so quickly? The reason we were there was that Bruce Springsteen invited us to come on this boat. It was a sort of a hotel and sort of a boat. And if you know dreams and you remember your dreams, you'll know that strange things like that can happen. But they were all holding cocktails. So it's kind of an old-fashioned thing, because today people, they might be holding a cocktail, but they'd be holding their phone as well. They had these dresses, and I was talking to my husband, so I was sort of with them, but I was also sort of looking on. And I said, yeah, they're like all wearing their prom dresses. What's that about? And as I thought about it through this morning, and I've been communicating with the board here at Greater Nashville as we've tried to make plans for the service and also for how we're going to stay connected and how we're going to help one another. I was writing something to someone, and I said, oh, she's on board with it. And this big aha just happened in my mind, like the board. We were on board, and those people were on board with it. I think there's more going on in that dream, but dreams use words and play on words if you really learn how to study them and listen to them. Certainly it was on my mind already, what will we do? How are we going to make this best for everybody? Here's one more dream. When I was going studying to become a Unitarian Universalist minister, and I had an ordination, my first installation, in Virginia. And I was serving a small church part-time in Winchester, Virginia. And so I was going to be ordained, and the person who was my mentor in my studies was named Jack Jung. He was a minister over in the DC area. And he came out to Winchester, just a couple-hour drive, to preach the sermon for my ordination. And he was late. He was late. We didn't have cell phones. It was 1995. I think he stopped at a payphone and called the church, but we didn't know why he was so late until he got there and explained it. He'd had a flat tire partway along. And again, it took a lot longer to do things before we had all these ways of communicating. I don't know if he had AAA, but even if he did, he would have to find a payphone. So I told my one of my other mentors, who was from Reston Woods, I told her, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to do the sermon. And she was like, okay, I'll figure it out, But then he literally came rushing in with his sermon in his hand the moment that it was time for him to give the sermon. Well, what he called his sermon was called The Dream of the Missing Sermon. And the irony is that it almost was missing because he barely made it there. In this sermon, he said a lot of things that I'll never forget. Of course, ordination is a big time. But he talked about this dream that all ministers have, that they show up and their whole congregation is there, and they don't have their sermon, and they also don't have anything to say. I mean, it just is blank. I've had this so many times. There were other dreams that I had when I was a waitress in college and high school that were also like, we would be so crowded and I couldn't get to the people and I just couldn't serve everybody. Well, this dream of the missing sermon is very common. Most clergy people have it. It's sort of reversed today because I do have a whole bunch of sermons and I have no people, a very few people. And in this talk that he gave, he talked about that. And what he came around to was something that I'd like us to close on, and that's this. He said, it doesn't matter though, because your ministry is not your sermon. Your ministry is you being there with the people and listening to them, loving them, helping them love one another, helping them see the deeper meaning in things. So that's what I wish for us. I hope that we will look to the deeper meaning. You can also study your dreams if you want, listen to your dreams. But let's try to make that dream of community a reality. And by the way, those two kinds of dreams aren't unrelated. When Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream," he was really talking about an actual dream that's related in the Bible, the dream of peace, prosperity, joy, liberty. When he said, "My children, the children of slaveholders and the children of former slaves and the children of former slaveholders will sit together at the table." Well, he got that from a dream that was in the Bible. That's an archetype. That's one of the deep, deep longings. Archetypes aren't just monsters and creatures and wolves and fires and disasters. They're also positive archetypes. Archetypes, the loving mother, the all-knowing wise sage, the dance, the love of community. I hope we'll go toward those positive meanings and also remember about the dream of the missing sermon. We don't have the actual physical church for a little bit of time now, but know that our love is here with you, we are here for you, and we will continue to make things available to you as time goes by. Amen.
Amen.
And we hope you're singing at home because we have "Lo, the earth awakes again." Spring just keeps on coming even though we're in a crisis. It's beautiful. That was the Gemignani family singing. They did pretty well. They're really a traveling musical group, like the Partridge Family. Yeah.
Fun traps.
All right. At this time, we are going to consider the joys and also the sorrows. And how would you like to do that? Tomorrow there'll be a place, or today when you watch this, there'll be a place where you can write some of your joys and sorrows in under this video or next to. But for now, is there anyone here who'd like to light a candle and share a joy or sorrow?
I'm Jenny, and your discussion of dreams did make me remember one dream from when I was pregnant with child number 2. So we just had the eldest, and I was in a van, and we got stuck on train tracks, and I had to choose between which of the 2 children I would get out of their car seats first, and just that sense of how much our life was going to change has always stayed with me. So luckily, they're now old enough to get themselves out of their car seats.
She calls them child number 1. That's when you have so many kids, you just have to give them
Just so
numbers.
many.
Any of you all? You don't have to come up, you can just say it. Well, I also want us to hold in our hearts, in our minds, in prayer or in meditation, all of our fellow members of the congregation. Some are going to need extra help, so please stay tuned to the ways that we have of letting you know how you can help others. At this time we sing Spirit of Life. You missed the interpretive dance that was going on. Perhaps the Geminianis will do interpretive dance for us on Sundays. I want to thank the Gemignani family and everyone on the board and also in leadership who has been right there this week, working together, talking together, and trying to figure out how best to manage things. Let's say our words for extinguishing the chalice together. May the love
Which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in and among us now and always.
I have an announcement, and then we'll sing Touch the Earth. This is good news. There is still good news. Last week we were speaking about the tornado and the people in this community that have been impacted by the tornado. That continues. Those people, they not only is there the coronavirus to worry about, but they have lack of shelter, lack of food, lack of funds, and a lot of them are in despair. We took a collection last week to help with tornado relief, and I did receive a note from the Unitarian Universalist Association disaster preparedness people, and said, we have funds if anything has happened. Well, nothing has happened to our building and most of the people in our congregation. Everyone's fine, but there was very little damage to anyone's property. But in this note, it said, and this money can also be given for a community effort that you're involved with. So I just filled out the form for the grant. I have a terrible history of getting grants, but I've gotten a few. And I just said, well, $9,000. And within less than 24 hours, I got a response, and they said $9,000 is on the way. Yeah. So this is from, this is going to be a joint contribution between our congregation and First Unitarian Universalist of Nashville. And we will work together with them to figure out how best to allocate this money. But we'll be giving it to Gideon's Army that I talked about last week. And by the way, Gideon also had a dream. That's another little connection, synchronicity there. And also through Noah. The money has to be for actual rebuilding or for physical repairs. And through Noah, we'll give to a couple of the churches that are members of Noah were destroyed. So we'll make it available to them, and we'll keep you posted. We would like to make the $9,000 $10,000 or $12,000, not $11,000. Has to be even number, so we can split it. So we are going to continue asking you, and there will be a button on the website, our church website, telling you how you can contribute. I have a friend. She's up in Kentucky, and we're in a writers group. We've known each other for about 20 years, and she saw on my Facebook about the tornadoes, and she sent me a message and said, I want to help. She's not a Unitarian Universalist. She just really needed a way to help, and she sent our congregation $150 this week to help deal with our relief efforts. So that continues, and there are lots of ways we can help with that, even if we are staying at home. Are there other announcements that I need to let people know about? So we hope you have lunch at home, but we are going to sing our closing song, and stay tuned for information will be coming to you.
The earth, reach the sky, soar with courage ever high. Spirits joining as we fly to touch the earth, to reach the sky.